Hi, it's Valentin, creator of ICMIZER here. In today's video I'll be showing you the recent additions to ICMIZER regarding capabilities to review progressive Super Knockout tournaments. The progressive Super Knockout tournaments have been added, I believe, last year, and they feature a standard payout structure, but the twist is that for busting each player you're getting an individual bounty for him. And once you bust someone, half of his bounty goes to you immediately, so that's your prize, and half of a bounty goes into your bounty prize pool. So this ends up to be rather tricky, and one player can be worth much more than the other player, so this creates an interesting dynamic, and adds an additional level of complexity to the calculation and analysis of these tournaments. So I'm glad to announce that ICMIZER now has the ability to calculate the ranges, calculate Nash equilibrium ranges in these tournaments, and it supports our FGS model combined with progressive knockout tournaments. So this gives poker player an ability to find the optimal strategy in these tournaments. And they are very tricky, and without a calculator like ICMIZER it could be difficult to find the optimal solution. I'll be showing you how it works. So I'll be assuming that you are aware of how ICMIZER works in general, but I'll also be showing you, explaining some important details. But if you have trouble understanding what's going on, I recommend to watch the tutorial video first, because this video will be focused on changes compared to standard tournaments, like non-progressive knockout tournaments. So it won't be covering the standard tournaments without bounties. So if you are reviewing a progressive knockout tournament in ICMIZER, you will see that the new column of bounties, individual bounties, has been added, and you can see the bounty for each player next to the player, and the column has this crosshair, and below it you have the sum of all bounties. The tournament which you are reviewing will be shown here, and you will be seeing a purple PKO icon here, which goes for Progressive Knockout Tournament. On PokerStars, these are called Progressive Super Knockout Tournaments, but I'm not sure what's so super about them. So we have shortened it up a little on ICMIZER, and they are just Progressive Knockout Tournaments. I believe that other rooms are also adding these, so you could also review them in ICMIZER too. So here I have selected a 90-man 9max PKO tournament for $5, and these are MTT sit and go tournaments which run pretty often every day. So here I have the situation from the final table. Let's say that we have 6 players, each with an even stack of 22,500 chips, and we wish to calculate how we should be playing here. So we have the bounties, and let's try to find a range. Let's say that we were wondering how wide we should be pushing here from under the gun with less than 10 big blinds deep, and given the ante, the M is pretty low too. For that, we can click the Calculate Nash Equilibrium button to find the Nash Equilibrium approximation. And once the approximation is found, we can click Calculate to find the precise best response range for hero when we are playing against opponents who are playing according to the Nash Equilibrium solution which we have just calculated. So it shows that we can be pushing 16% of hands from under the gun. Let's see how these bounties work and how they affect our decisions. What do we have? Slightly bigger stack than our players. This would mean that they cannot bust us, and if they call, they cannot pretend to win our bounty. If they win, we will be still alive with 1,000 of chips and $16 individual bounty for us. So let's calculate the Nash equilibrium now, and we will probably see that it will change. And as we can see, it has changed significantly. Now we can push very wide compared to previous range, and our opponents aren't as interested in calling us anymore. This should make sense, because if they cannot bust us and get the $8 immediately and add $8 to their bounty pool, they become less excited about calling, so their push EV becomes worse, and they are just folding more to our pushes. And because we are folding more, we can push wider. So this is an interesting dynamic. The progressive knockout tournaments are very difficult to algorithmically, they are very difficult, and what we are doing in ICMIZER is finding the EV of certain outcome, for example, EV of everyone folding to us. So in the end, we have the number of stacks, like the resulting outcome distribution of stacks, and we need to combine stacks with the bounties and to find the expected value of stack of each player. Then once we have all these expected values of stacks, we can multiply them on the probabilities of all outcomes given the ranges, and then we can find out the actual solution. So the progressive knockout tournaments are very complex, and they require a lot of combinatorial combinations of potential, like one player busting another, getting his bounty, then another player busting the other, and they are very tricky, and they require a lot of time to perform the calculation. So we have been working on the algorithm for a while, and it is a highly optimized algorithm which allows to be used with the FGS model. And the FGS model stands for Future Game Simulation. And in FGS, unlike ICM, we are looking into future hands. So FGS has a depth setting, and with FGS1 we are looking one hand ahead, with FGS2 we are looking two hands ahead, etc. So if we are looking several hands ahead, we can notice that the blinds are moving, that the under the gun players get on the blinds, they post blinds, and it affects their ranges, it affects their equities, and it changes ranges a lot. So FGS combined with progressive knockout tournament support in ICMIZER gives a big edge against opponents who are just playing by intuition. Let's fix the range, the stack size back to 22,500, and let me demonstrate you how tight the range is. So as you can see, slight change in stack size, and the range jumps from 16 to 30% of push for hero. Let's look at the other case and try to understand what's going on here. Let's say the small blind is pushing into us, and we are on the big blind. And here we can see that the small blind has additional bounty for him, $13.57. And if we are wondering what kind of EV that is from the total prize pool, we can always hover over the tournament name to check how it works. And we can see that the total prize pool is $414, and half of that goes to knockout prize pool, $207. So out of those $207, $13 represents a rather significant part. And the first prize is 27% from $200, so that's around $54. But we need to remember, if we bust Whip's player, we only get half of his bounty. So let's calculate. Here we can see that against 66% range, we can call with 38% hands. Let's change something. Let's assume that his bounty is bigger. Let's say his bounty is $23. Now, before our range was 38%. Now let's calculate. We can see that our range improves. Now let's see what happens if we increase his bounty even more. The range keeps going up. Now some players may assume that if the bounty is so significant, then we should be very active in our call, and we should be trying to win these $20 now. But the interesting thing about this is that actually we can wait. The thing to consider here is our EV of fold, because most players realize that if they push, they can win the bounty, and their equity of push will increase significantly. But they do not realize that if our opponent bounty is growing up, then our EV of fold is also going up. Because let's look at the initial situation. If the sum of bounty is $45, we can use the EV flow to evaluate the stacks pre-flop. So we can see that with current setting, the EV pre-flop for all players is 8%, 58 hundredths of total prize pool, of the remaining prize pool for 6 players. Now, as we increase the player's bounty, the small blind bounty, we can see that our EV is going up. As we increase his bounty to significant value, like $43, our EV now, like the EV of fold, is growing up significantly. And it is now almost 10% compared to previous 8%. So this dynamic is important, and ICMIZER keeps track of it. So when your call range changes, it doesn't grow as rapidly as some players' intuition will assume. And this is a very important thing to understand. If we have 6 players with the same stacks, it means that each player equity is the same. It doesn't matter who has the bounty next to him. This is an important point, because a small blind may feel like he has more equity, but the truth is that his $43 bounty will be only his if he wins the tournament and busts all other players. Now, if he finishes first, he will be getting his bounty in full. That's how Progressive Knockout Tournament works. So since all players have even stacks, it means that they can all end up on any position with the same probability. And because of that, everyone's chance to get money is equal, and everyone's EV is equal. So that's one thing to consider about Progressive Knockout tournaments. Now ICMIZER does everything for you, but you can also use some intuition which is based on math when you're playing this, because not all spots can be reviewed in ICMIZER. And when you're playing, you cannot plug it in during the game, because ICMIZER can only be used outside of poker sessions. So now let's see what happens if this player actually has a bigger stack and we cannot bust him. First, let's find the Nash equilibrium if he is even and we can bust him. The Nash equilibrium for his $43 bounty will be 50 push range, and we should be counting with 46% hands. Now, if he has 23,000, it means that if we win, he still has $1,000 and his bounty. Let's see how the Nash pushing range changes for him and our calling range changes. We calculate the Nash equilibrium approximation, and now we can see a huge change. He can now push 96% of hands, 95, and we can only call with 35%. So this is important. If, however, he has a smaller stack, it means that we can bust him, and he knows that we can bust him, and because of that, he should be tightening up. Now, why do we see these bounties? Some players are asking, how do we review Progressive Knockout tournaments? We do not see the bounties. If you choose in our tournament, for example, standard 6-month hyper tournament, the bounty field will disappear. They only show up if you select the bounty tournaments. So ICMIZER has 2 Progressive Knockout tournaments built in. They are 90-man MTT SNG Turbo with $5 buy-in and $11 buy-in. Now it's important to choose the correct buy-in. If you choose the wrong buy-in and you provide individual bounties from your tournament, which was from the different buy-in, you will end up with the wrong results. So if you are not playing the Progressive Knockout tournament, which is a 90-man MTT sit and go, then it means that you will need to create the Progressive Knockout tournament which you are playing and reviewing hands from which you're manually. So let's go through the process of creating the tournament, the Progressive Knockout tournament. For example, here I have a Progressive Knockout tournament structure from PokerStars. And let's say that you have a hand from the final table of this tournament and you wish to review it. Let's look how we can create the tournament in ICMIZER. So I'll have bounties here, and I'll move ICMIZER a little bit here so you can see how I'm creating the tournament. So we click the tournament selector button and we click the create new tournament button. Now let's say that it's 17,900 MTT, and then we need to click the progressive checkbox here. So what we need is number of entries, 895, and the knockout size. The knockout size can be seen in the buy-in. It's $10 for a knockout. So we can see that now we have a sum of payouts equal to $8,950. This is the knockout prize pool. Now the buy-in is 10 plus 10, so the standard prize pool should be also equal to $8,950. So let's plug it in. First place gets 197.22, second 1,122.35. I'll go through the entering these values. And we can see that the total sum of payouts is slowly growing, and we expect it to become 7,900 in the end. Now we have zones with equal payouts, 10 through 12, please. 85, 4, 13th through 15th. Now I'm entering the zone sizes, 16th through 18th. $90 for 27, 28 through 45, 46 through 72, 73 through 108. And voila, we have the total sum of payouts, 17,900 chips. Now we are finished creating a tournament. It was a little bit not easy, but it takes like 2 minutes, and when you can review hands from this tournament, you probably have a hand history file with a lot of hands, so it shouldn't be a big investment of time for players. So we click the create, and the tournament appears, and we can see that it is working as we would hope it is working. Now, if we have hands from this tournament, we can load them to ICMIZER. The other way to get the similar results, let's say we have only 3 players remaining, and let's think what kind of bounties we can see on the final table. You can probably expect some kind of 200 bounties or something like that. Maybe one player has 3. And the stack sizes should be bigger probably, but for calculation sake it's really not that important. But the sum should be, I've done the math, and the stack sizes should be like this. So the total price, the total sum of chips is 1,342,500 chips. And the blinds should be pretty high, I guess. I don't have blinds here, but we can guess what kind of sizing could be, for probably something like 30,000 4K antes. So if we have a hand like this, we have created the tournament. you should be able to review it in ICMIZER and find the optimal ranges. And here we are now reviewing a custom tournament. So again, every time when you're reviewing a custom tournament in ICMIZER, you should be creating the tournament, a new tournament. Unless you are playing a very similar tournament which has the same buy-in, the same prize pool. Like I say, it is very important to have the tournament which matches the hand history. There is a simpler way to create a tournament, and I'll show you the trick. So let's say we want to create this tournament, but a little bit faster than we did the last time. So I'll call it 17,000. And again, we choose the progressive knockout. We choose the number of players, 895, 10 knockout size. We enter first 9 buy-ins as we did before. But actually we can ignore the values after the dot. They wouldn't affect the ranges at all. These cents aren't really important for the calculation's sake. And now for the last position, what we need, since we only have 9 players at the table or less, we don't really care about the structure as it goes after the 9th position. So what we can do is, in order to get the same results, but the same correct results, we need to make sure the total sum of payouts is close to the tournament prize pool, 17,900. But we can do it by creating a big zone which goes from 10th player to whatever place is required to make the total sum of payouts as we want it. So let's say this buy-in, this 10th player gets $100, and we can see what size of zone is required to make a sum of chips, a sum of buy-ins as something we expect. So here if we need to make 17,900, so if we make it 44, we pretty much have the same tournament. Actually, if we make it 43 players, it will be very closely matching the actual tournament. So this is the faster way to create tournaments. We can click create and we can calculate the Nash ranges, but we need to choose the correct blinds. Every time we create a new tournament, the blinds need to be recreated. And if we calculate here, we can see that the range is pretty much the same as it was in our previous tournament. Let's compare them to see that the results are pretty much the same. Here we have 59, 32 ranges, and if we look at under the gun position, we can see the ranges are like this. If we change, we can calculate Nash, and we can see that nothing changed. So the faster way to create tournament is recommended. Like I say, you aren't really that worried about the cents, unless you are playing very low stakes. In that case, the cents could be representing a significant part of tournament equity, so you need to have that too. Now, you can easily create the tournaments or plug in hands manually, but for hands, we support pasting hands from files. Now let's do this to see how it works. In November, I believe, of 2016, PokerStars have added bounties to the text of tournament histories. So you can load the tournaments easily by using the load hands tournament and find the required file. Or you could copy hands from your tracking software like Hold'em Manager or Pocket Tracker and paste them in this field by using this paste button. So here I have opened the file. It says that it appears to have 2 hand histories. I click the load button, and voila, we have the hands loaded, and they have different bounties next to each player. So this hand shows different bounties, and you can imagine it would have taken quite a while to plug all these bounties, but with this paste feature, you can easily plug hands in ICMIZER. So basically the goal of this video is to get players comfortable with the user interface so they can create the tournaments which are required for Progressive Knockout tournament hand review, and they can understand what the logic is used, so we are not surprised by the results which we are seeing. So I hope this was useful and that you have learned something, and I hope that you will find this functionality in ICMIZER helpful for your game, and I'm very excited about this. So if you have any questions, please ask, and if you like or share this video, I would be very thankful. Thank you for watching. It's been Valentin, creator of ICMIZER. Goodbye.